Welcome back to the show. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm your host, Angela B. Fuller, master hairstylist turned certified life coach. Today is a very special, first of all, I have a very special guest. It's a very special topic, but it's also the first introduction of a series that I will have every first Sunday. And ironically, the series is called First Sunday. And on First Sunday, what I do is I dive into and talk about spiritual wellness. On First Sunday, I'll have a guest from the spiritual community in which we'll be talking about things that's near and dear to our hearts and a way for us to connect with that spirit, that sense of wonder that resides inside of us. So, let me introduce my first guest. I have known this woman for 27 years. As a matter of fact, we met face to face January 28th, 1995. And what I had to do to have this encounter with her, I had to push her out of my womb. And on that morning, I was 7 pounds lighter. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my daughter, Esprit.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hi.
So here's the thing. This is how we're going to do this.
Okay.
Because if I have to introduce you to my magnificent audience, to my magnificent community, we'll be here until tomorrow morning. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell our audience, our community, what you would like for them to know about you.
Okay.
All right.
My name's Esprit. I'm her daughter, as we've already heard. I am a certified holistic nutritionist and content creator. I make some content on Instagram and just a little bit, I guess, on TikTok too. You can find me on my Instagram at esprit.oree. That's ESPRIT _OREE.
Well, that's good. I think I'll check you out.
Okay. She is already subscribed.
That's right. So listen.
And very active.
Well, with your help. So the reason I wanted to talk about to have you as my guest on First Sunday is because, remember, First Sunday is about spiritual wellness. And I'm going to just jump right in. You know, when I became pregnant with my daughter, I was 32 years old. And some folks may say, ooh, you waited a long time to have a baby. But I wanted to be ready. And so up until that point of my life, I felt like I was a deeply spiritual person. You know what? Before we even get into that, let's just do a pop quiz. We can't forget about the pop question.
You're right. We
Okay,
can't.
so our pop question.
Also, one more thing. In addition to being those other two things, I am also a little freelancer, videographer, and editor for only one client. And one client only.
That's right.
I'm normally behind the camera in this scenario, and behind the computer screen.
But today
I'm in front of it.
you in front of the camera, and
So pop quiz.
And you are certainly a sight for sore eyes.
Oh, that'd be easy.
Okay, so the pop quiz is this will lead us into our topic. The pop quiz is, what do you think about the question that we are spiritual beings having a human experience?
I think it is a true statement. That's all I have to say.
Okay,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
A true statement.
Yeah, I mean, we as humans are just sort of living in these vessels so that we can recognize one another on this sort of 3D plane, right? Like spirit and consciousness and whatever you want to call it, your soul, I don't believe has a physical, tangible image, but the world that we live in, not to get too woo-woo, is, I mean, it's a 3D plane, right? It's a 3D world. So we have to have some sort of recognizable suit to see one another.
Okay.
Right? To interact in a
interact.
physical plane.
Yeah. You sound like you are your mama's child.
Right. Yeah.
You sound like you're your mama's child. So when I was pregnant and I was in labor, up to that moment, I felt like I was a spiritual being. I felt that there was more to me than just being human. But in going through the process of delivery, it was clear to me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I was having a spiritual experience. And because of, with your birth, that helped me to understand that I am a spiritual being having a human experience.
Right.
So I feel like it was only fitting that you be my first guest.
Makes sense.
On my first Sunday where we discuss spiritual wellness. So
Okay.
I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get right into it. What do you remember? How far can you go back your memory in terms of being human?
Maybe like my memory doesn't go so far back as much as some people. I know some people, like I remember when I was 3 and this happened. I would say maybe like 5.
About 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
okay.
5.
Okay. And if you had to put words to that experience in regards to not just being human, but being my daughter,
right?
How would you describe that experience?
I mean, it was a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really good childhood. You're a great
Okay.
mom. One of the best.
So.
Trying to make her cry.
Thank you, baby.
But I mean, as far as I could remember, at age 5, I mean, the world was very big, but it also felt very simple. I mean, at 5 years old, hopefully you have nothing really to worry about. I didn't, at least in my instance, I didn't have to worry about food or shelter or bills, or like I didn't really have a concept of those things. They just kind of existed.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't involved in purchasing things or paying things or driving anywhere, or
but you know
my concept of time wasn't really existent. I just kind of existed and wanted to play
and have fun.
Yeah.
So do you know how some people, now that you are an adult and you have lived over these past 27 years, do you know how some adults feel like they walk alone?
Yeah, some people do.
Some people do.
Yeah, I'm.
Was that your experience?
No, absolutely not. I think I was a very independent child, being an only child, or raised as an only child. So I definitely enjoyed my alone time, but I don't have a feeling at that age of feeling lonely or like I was the only person around or alone. Yeah. And if I did feel alone, I would always know, like, well, I have my mom.
You have
you know what
your
I mean?
mom.
And I have aunts and uncles and cousins and friends and other people that were around me, but I don't think they were necessarily my priority at that age.
Because see, when I became a mom, there were also emotions that came with that. Because I felt like I did everything in my life except being a mom. And I don't know if some of our guests can relate to that. But when I became a mom, our viewers can relate to that.
You're all a guest.
You're all a guest. But my viewers can relate to that. Because I remember the only relation I had was the imprint that my mama left on me. And I never felt alone with her. Forget my brothers and sisters. I love all 9 of them because there are 10 of us. You have 9 aunts and uncles.
I'm aware.
And so my example of a mom was my own mom. So I had to use what she instilled in me in hopes that that was, because times were different, in hopes that that would be enough for me to help you to grow, to help you to become.
Right.
And so I never felt alone because I connected with you while you were growing inside of me. You had your name. I brought you to work. As a matter of fact, I would take, when I was like maybe 7 months pregnant.
7 months and on.
7 months and on, I would use my belly. You helped me to turn the styling chair on my clients. And everybody who called you as Spree.
See, that's not a memory I have. Obviously.
That's not a memory you have. But let me tell you.
I'm sure it had an effect, for sure.
Absolutely, because science tells us that a child is still here.
Come on,
A
scientist.
child could hear, a child could feel. So I was very conscious to think good thoughts, feel good thoughts, keep my stress at an all-time low.
Yeah.
And I think that when we think about what helps us get through the day, what helps to lift us higher, we got to be very, very aware that whatever we take in has an effect on us, and so it also has an effect on how we relate to the world.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
I agree.
So have you had any experience like that?
With my mood affecting like my outside world?
That's right.
I mean, yeah, I think that growing up I was seen as certainly not a class clown, but definitely in my group of friends, maybe a little bit more lighthearted, or like the one that could give advice, or I just didn't want other people feeling bad around me. So I would try and make people laugh, or try and at least just lift their mood a little bit, or reassure them that things will be okay, even if I didn't know what else to say. But I did notice that if I was in not even a bad mood, but just in a mood of some kind,
a mood
that you go through when you're 8 and 9 years old, that it was very puzzling to people around me, like to my friends or family. They're like, "Are you okay? You just seem like you're in a bad mood."
But is that something that you focus on, or or you think that's just who you had become?
It wasn't anything that I focused on necessarily.
Because there are times when, and maybe our viewers can relate to that. Sometimes we're in a jacked up mood. Sometimes our spiritual equilibrium is totally off.
Yeah, I mean,
but we're afraid to show that.
Yeah, I mean, being in a bad mood, or just not in a enthusiastic or like very loud mood, kind of garnered the same sort of attention. If I was I was rarely in a really bad mood around people, but if I was, of course I had some really close friends who would give me the same treatment and ask me, "Are you okay? What's going on?" That would actually be genuinely interested. And then, you have some people who are just not used to their happy friend not being enthusiastically happy or like outwardly happy.
Right.
But also I'm not an introvert by any means, but I have moments where I enjoy being alone. I enjoy being kind of quiet, shockingly. I enjoy
many instances.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a little bit of your MO, Spree. I don't know. Did I let the cat out the bag?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I like to laugh and have a good time and be silly, but I think also, like I said, being raised as an only child, and having to go through those motions of being really comfortable with being alone.
Yeah.
And then becoming uncomfortable with being alone from grief and trauma, like with my dad passing, and then having to sort of rebuild that relationship with myself, and then having sort of just waves, I guess, of being alone being interpreted as loneliness versus solitude. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of moments where I just like to kind of be by myself and quiet, and it's not me purposefully shutting people out or, you know, retreating into a little shell. It's just sometimes I just don't have anything to say, or I just don't have the energy to give, and I find that outside of you, I am my best company. So there's only so much I can talk to myself without it seeming concerning.
Something you said just a few minutes ago, you said when you lost your dad.
Right.
Can we visit that for just a second?
Yeah.
How did that make you feel in terms of you not feeling alone? Was that a moment in which you felt alone? You were very young at that time.
Right, I was 7.
But if you think back, how did that make you feel in terms of feeling safe, not feeling alone?
I never felt unsafe, and I knew that whatever I was feeling, I could come to you with. But I didn't really. I think at that age, I just didn't really know how to voice what I was saying, or voice what I was feeling, and I don't think I had the proper way of processing that.
Being
in order to talk about it.
Yes.
Right. So it was a very confusing time. It was probably my first really close instance with death, because obviously I was alive when my grandmother, your mom, passed away, but I was 4 months old, so that's not a memory that I have of that. But at age 7, it's real. It's pretty real. It's real. You know. It's real. And I think as far as my understanding of death was that when someone dies, they're gone, they're not coming back.
Yes. Yeah.
And you don't really know what that means, because I think even as a kid, if you see someone go to work, like as a very, very young child, like a toddler, I feel like when they see their parents go to work, they don't necessarily know that they're coming back.
They don't, that's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The brain just hasn't been able to process that, and I could be wrong, but that's what I assume. But at age 7, you've been able to like notice a routine of, oh, they're going here, they'll be back. You don't really have a concept of the potential existing that someone won't be back.
So would you say
I wasn't able to fully process what was happening when he passed, and I didn't really know how to voice it, even though I know I could go to you. I always knew that. I've always known that, but I just didn't know what to say, and I don't think I knew that an appropriate response to grief was nothing. It was like to say nothing at all.
How do you think that shaped your spiritual wellness, that experience?
Well, I will say the actual experience of his passing was very interesting, because when we went to his viewing, what I remember is going up to his casket and just not recognizing him. Like I saw his face, and it looked like his face, but it didn't look like him. And I think that was probably, I didn't know it at the time, but it was probably my first experience with recognizing that the soul or spirit is not the body.
That's right. That's right.
So seeing him, it was almost like going to the wax museum, where they look like the celebrities or the actors or the characters, but you can tell that it's not really them.
But the feeling,
there's no life in it.
There's no life in it.
Right? Yes. It didn't look like he was sleeping. I distinctly remember that. It didn't look like he was sleeping. And I don't think I really knew what was happening, but I was just, it was uncomfortable. It was almost like an uncanny valley. You know, you see something that looks so human. Like, you know, there's some artificial intelligence where they'll create like a robot that looks like a person. There's something about it where you're like, this isn't really alive. There's something a little off about it. And I think that's what it was. I recognized his face, but I didn't recognize him laying there. And it was just very uncomfortable. And I didn't know how to, once again, didn't really know how to voice that at that age. But after he passed a few years later, maybe when I was like 10 or 11, I remember having a dream. Now at this point, obviously I hadn't heard his voice in 3-4 years.
Yes.
But I remember having a dream. We were in some house, maybe it was an old house we lived in. Didn't really look that familiar. But I saw him in the kitchen, and I was still at my age at the time, 10 or 11.
This is my first hearing this.
Is it?
I believe so. Well, I'm hearing it anew.
Maybe the whole beginning of it.
Yes.
But I feel like I
this is
mentioned the
interesting.
ending.
Okay.
But I saw him washing dishes or standing by the counter or something, and I remember looking at him, very confused and puzzled, because, sorry, what is he doing here? But I looked at him and I said, like, hello, or like, what are you, like, what's going on? And he turned around and he said, I don't remember what he said, but I remember his voice felt familiar. Like, it felt like his voice.
Yes.
And I hadn't heard his voice in years.
Yes.
And I said, what are you doing here? You know, you left. And he knelt down and like looked me in the eyes, and his face was his face, his voice was his voice. Like it felt like him. It felt more like him than seeing him in a casket. And that's like a physical, tangible form of him. And he said, you know, I left, but I'm never gone.
Right. Oh.
And I don't remember if anything else happened in the dream. I remember waking up. Something else could have happened. I just don't remember. Definitely with tears in my eyes, and it was a very special dream. It was very scary because I was still very young.
You're still young.
And like hearing his voice, seeing him.
But it's amazing
I
how
think that was my first time having a dream. Yeah, that was my first time having a dream with him.
With him, yeah.
Or with anyone who had passed. And so whether it can be chalked up to just like a manifestation of healing or processing, or if it was legitimately his spirit, whatever someone wants to, describe it as, it was very real.
It was real to you.
It was very real. So, I think that sort of confirmed when I think about that now. It definitely confirms my feeling of spirit and consciousness and soul being so different than the body. That the body is literally just, like I said, a 3D vessel.
That's right.
For this life.
And made up of, as a nutritionist, as a certified holistic nutritionist, you know that the body is made up of minerals. We're made up of certain things, and that does not qualify us.
Right.
It's like in the beginning we talked about that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
And when that human experience is over, we go back.
Yeah. And when I think about it now, kind of in this moment, I think the reason why because I don't really tend to get very emotional when talking about him anymore. At one point I did. I wouldn't even be able to mention the word dad without
I'm so grateful
breaking down.
For your growth. I'm grateful.
I think a part of that comes from obviously coming to terms with his death, but also like his human experience is over, but like he said, like he told me, he's not gone.
He's not gone.
And I think that brings me some comfort, because I think a lot of people fear death or are uncomfortable with it because it's an unknown state. We don't know what's happening after. We don't know what the other side looks like.
Yes.
We can use various religion and spiritualities to try and have a hypothesis or a hopeful place that we go, but we don't know for sure until we're already there. And I would say 99.9% of the time you can't tell the people who are living what's going on.
Exactly.
I don't know exactly where we end up when we pass, but I know that it's just our human experience ending. I can feel confident in that. And that's enough for me to be like, okay, well, I don't need to know what's on the other side until I'm there, because that's not my job right now. Like, that's not my role. My role is to be present in the human moment, understand that I'm a spiritual being, but find comfort in the fact that I'm now human.
Yes.
I'm now in my human experience, so I need to enjoy that and not try and reach some unattainable enlightenment or higher power to the point where you don't even realize that you're human anymore.
Right.
And you're missing an experience. You're not taking advantage of it.
What helps me go through this life is knowing that I am human and divine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we all of us are on a different journey. We're in a different journey.
Yeah.
We're on a different place in our journey. And we do have a guide that we can use to help move us along in our spiritual wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this episode is really about letting listeners know that, letting our viewers know that the main point is that we are never alone. We do not.
This episode is getting a little deeper than
I know, but I didn't know where it was going to go. But we do not walk alone.
Right.
We do not walk alone. And for some people, that's comforting to know. There's so many levels of life, so many levels of enlightenment. But just to know that we are not alone, and you take that statement, and then you just try and learn more and develop more. And that's what First Sunday is about. Having guests on in the spiritual community to share their experience with our viewers, and along the way help somebody.
Let me see if it's still recording. You can keep going.
And along the way help somebody. And just so many times we have to be careful of how we help. Everybody is on a different path. Everybody is on a different journey. And show one another grace, because we're not all the same. We're not on the same journey.
Life would be boring if we were.
Life would be extremely boring if we were. And I think that has helped us as mother and daughter. I think that we allow each other to just be.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
I know, like, we started a thing called in the mornings we have our coffee and conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out so much about one another just from having conversation.
Yeah, we definitely are very similar in a lot of ways, but also very different.
Now, we're not here to tell stories, to share secrets. Don't you go there.
No, I'm not going. I wasn't going to go into that. Not yet. We'll say that.
Not yet.
We'll say that
for another time.
Conversation.
Coffee and conversation.
But I just mean, I think that our differences lie in, obviously, the moms that we had growing up, the way that we were raised.
Yes.
Because even though it's the same lineage, you are very much like your mom in a lot of ways from what you've told me.
Yes.
But also,
I am becoming her.
Right.
Every day
also,
I find myself becoming her.
But also I think you are different just because you grew up in a different era than she did, and I'm growing up in a different era than you did. So your experience in your 20s and your 30s and your teens is very different than hers.
Yes.
And obviously there's some similarities probably, but a lot of differences. And that shaped the kind of mom you are.
Yes.
Because I at least I feel like I had a lot more freedom.
Yes.
I mean,
but you know, it's
might
so funny
have had a lot of
though,
freedom
because
you're
the youngest of 10.
Right.
By the time my mom got around to
she was over it,
disciplining me and handling me, she was tired.
Girl,
so yeah, I got away with a lot.
Yeah.
But I didn't take advantage of that.
Right. And I think because you saw your siblings not being able to necessarily get away with anything.
Absolutely not.
Whereas I had the experience of being an only child.
So
I didn't really have a way of observing
that I love with all of my heart. So how do you love someone with all of your heart and still raise them in a way, mother them in a way, teach them in a way that doesn't stifle that spirit called them?
I mean, you literally named me Spirit, so I don't really have a way of avoiding that.
God must have known.
But also, you are a very, as a mom, I think I always had the understanding, especially as a teenager, of I could probably ask my mom for anything and she would say yes. I could probably, maybe I could get away with this thing because my mom is so nice, but I knew that you weren't naive. You know, I knew
borderline crazy.
Borderline psychic.
That's true.
Psychic. Because there would be times.
Esprit always felt like I was psychic.
There would be times.
Always.
There would be times in high school, especially high school, where I had, friends who shall not be named.
Let's see, the names have been changed or protected. The names have been changed
or omitted
to protect the innocent.
But I had people that were friends or within friendship groups that would say, if we went out somewhere and I told my mom where we would be going, and she would say, yeah, that's fine, go ahead. Because I knew that she would say yes, because I wasn't about to ask her to go somewhere crazy.
No.
That event or that situation would end and people wouldn't necessarily want to go home, but we're 15, 16.
Tell
I feel
the
like
story. Tell the story.
After a certain time at night, as a 16-year-old, you're probably doing something that you shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So they would make it like, let's go to this party, or let's go here, or and I would say, y'all can drop me off home. Because we're talking about it, it's in the ether, it's in the air, and my mom already knows.
Girl, you're crazy.
And either, not that I would ever really contemplate, because I'm a homebody, always have been. I like going out with my friends, I like seeing people, but also I want to be home in my bed alone.
Chilling like
a villain. So within maybe 30 minutes of that, ideas being tossed around of what else can we do at night, what else can we do here before we go home, or where else can we hang out, I would be getting a call or a text message. And not in a way that was ever overprotective or hovering.
No, never
but
that.
Just as a general curiosity of like,
yeah.
Oh, what time are you going to be home?
Just want to know.
I didn't have a curfew.
I wanted to know so that I could know how to proceed with my night.
Right. I didn't have a curfew, but obviously there's no reason for me to be 16 years old out until 3 a.m.
That's right.
Because where
Say
am I
that
going?
one more time. Say it one more time.
There is no reason for me to be 16 years old.
That's right.
Staying out until 3 a.m.
That's right.
Because what am I doing?
Wait a minute.
What are you doing? Let me get my glass.
That's right.
But I had good friends in high school.
You did.
I mean,
you absolutely
really
did.
all we would be doing would be hanging out at the Sonic by Walmart.
That's
in our cars.
Off of Dorchester Road? Or was that Ashley Park Street?
Out the whole,
oh, shoot!
Where we live. We don't live there anymore. You'll never find out. But
that's
yeah, we would just be at the Sonic in everyone's car eating tater tots and slushies and listening to music. So I had good innocent friends. Or I would be with my theater friends and we would be at someone's house eating gingerbread and sparkling
having
juice.
Innocent, pure fun.
Watching The Lion King.
My times have changed. Times have changed.
I'll still watch The Lion King and eat gingerbread cake.
And I can do that today.
It just won't be sparkling wine. It'll be, or like sparkling juice. It'll be wine.
You were born in what? 1995. Full-fledged woman.
For some people, that still sounds like a baby.
No, full-fledged woman. You're a full-fledged woman. Well, I'll tell you what. This has really been a good episode. We talked about a lot of things. Some things because we didn't have a plan.
Right.
We had a general outline that we wanted to talk about spiritual wellness.
I didn't even know the plan until we sat down and set up the camera. I don't know.
Yes. I just wanted people to know, first and foremost, that we do not walk alone. That we're always supported. Don't ever feel like you're alone. And my first experience of really not feeling alone, of feeling that I was supported, was when I gave birth to my daughter. And I never forgot that experience. And so I wanted to know what your spiritual wellness felt like to you growing up. And so, and this is where the conversation has led us.
Yeah.
You know.
I think as far as my spiritual wellness as your daughter,
Yes.
like as a baby or as a toddler, as a child. I think you cultivated a very, very special relationship. Because I think anyone who follows me or even my mom on social media knows that we are very close.
Yes.
But it's not just like, oh, like a good mother-daughter relationship. Like, this is genuinely my best friend. Sorry to my best friend. But
sorry to that.
Sorry to her best friend.
Sorry to my best friend.
But my mom is genuinely my best friend. I know that I can talk to her about anything. And there's sometimes, no matter how old I get, sometimes you just want to like sit on the couch next to your mom.
That's right.
And just like have a knee touch.
A knee touch. That's
like
right.
just something. And I think that
a laugh that doesn't stop.
Right. That's been created with intention. And that wasn't really on my part. It was really on you from the very beginning. Like you mentioned, saying, giving me my name very young and
warm.
I've heard the story that apparently she was the most annoyingly happy pregnant woman in the world.
That's right. Happy as can be.
So,
and still happy to this day with all everything that we go through as mother and daughter. Believe me, we it's the full gamut.
Yeah.
But what we have learned to do is not to be afraid to say, I'm sorry. Asking questions, did I hurt your feelings? Good morning, thank you, please. And giving each other space.
You've always made a point to make sure that communication is incredibly important and that you don't take things personal, and therefore I don't take things personal with you.
That's right.
And if I feel like something is personal, we both have a very clear, open path to say, okay, what's going on?
I don't like this.
But we've never had I won't even say argument, any sort of like disagreement or tension that's lasted more than 5 minutes.
And that we could not resolve.
Right.
We never make it bigger than us. And so I think that's just good for just developing as humans, developing as spiritual beings. Don't ever make the problem bigger than yourself or your friend or your spouse or your neighbor or your coworker. Always try and resolve. There's always a level of resolve.
I mean, you've always just talked to me like a person.
Absolutely.
If I drop something or break something, it's not a screaming match. Right.
No, never, ever.
It's always just been a,
do
you need some help with that?
Let me help you pick that
up. Go get the dustpan, I'll get the broom, we'll pick it up.
And I think sometimes we forget that when we become adults, that everybody just wants to feel supported.
Yeah.
And, just want to be understood.
But also goes back to making things bigger than they are.
Bigger than they
You know
are.
what I mean? Dropping a plate and it breaking. Okay.
It's just a plate dropping.
Because even if it's like a family heirloom, not that I've ever broken a family heirloom, that wasn't me slyly saying that I broke a family heirloom. But if you break something that has had some sort of sentimental value, at some point that won't matter. Like bigger, more important things in your life will happen. More important people in your life will go through good and bad things that are gonna outweigh a broken plate. You know what I mean?
Right.
For a minute it might be kind of sad and might be upset if someone was being clumsy or playing around with it, but
hey,
it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world.
Well, I think this is a good place to end.
Is it? Already?
I think it's a good place to end.
Already?
It seemed like 2 minutes, but that statement is not the end of the world. There will be another time.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I would like to be re-invited back to the orange chair.
Girl, you do not have to worry.
Back to the
You
orange
do not
chair.
have to worry. So this is an example of what our first Sunday is going to be like. Very casual conversation, very open conversation, and then we just let the conversation lead where it leads. So I want to invite you back. Thank you for watching. Thank my guest, Esprit Villon Ori.
Thank you for having me.
Certified holistic nutritionist and content creator. I thank God she is a touch away because this girl here is helping me out.
I'm just gonna say this as
What?
as editor, make the levels go up a little bit.
Okay.
Hold the mic further away if you can be yelling.
Okay, sis. You know, I'm
Going
still
into the
learning.
red.
I come from a loud family, but I'm still learning.
We do
I
come
am
from a loud
learning.
family.
Anyway, so thank you all for tuning in. Again, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to comment, rate and review, and make sure you ring that bell to let us inform you of when another episode drops every Sunday at 8 a.m. God bless, and thank you for tuning in. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Bye. How sweet.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to follow along with the show and my mom, then you can find her on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Angela B. Fuller. You can check out her website, angelabfuller.com, as well as subscribe to her YouTube channel where you can see the visual episodes of podcasts and other content, which is just Angela B. Fuller. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok. On Instagram, I am at Esprit.Ori, that's ESPRIT.Ori. And then on TikTok, I'm just Esprit.Ori, no period. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is just Esprit.Ori as well. And we look forward to seeing you guys in episode 4 of Lessons from Behind My Chair next Sunday. Have a great week, and we'll see you then. Okay? Bye!